Hello everybody, and welcome to Car Confections, and welcome to part 2 of our all-new 2025 Mazda CX-70 review. In this part, we're very excited to show you what this all-new CX-70 is like to drive behind the wheel. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get to it. Now, of course, like always, this test drive is going to be covering quite a bit of information. We're also going to get things like our signature sound level reading as well. But we're going to begin by getting a hard acceleration. All right. There is a little bit of a rolling acceleration up to 55 miles per hour. In the all-new 2025 Mazda CX-70. Now I do want to point out there are several different powertrain options with this vehicle, so if you didn't see that in part 1 of the review where we talked about all of the other different powertrain options, you may want to check out part 1. We also go through the whole exterior and interior details of this all-new vehicle, but what we're in today is the plug-in hybrid variant, and of course it's very unique, honestly, in this segment to have a plug-in hybrid. And as you can see by that acceleration there, this is not a weak plug-in hybrid by any stretch of the imagination. What it's going to be comprised of is a 2.5-liter 4-cylinder plus a 17.8 kilowatt-hour lithium-ion battery pack, altogether making 323 horsepower. Torque is also rated at 369 pound-feet of torque. Now, this is, technically a new nameplate for the brand. It's not really all new in the sense that this powertrain setup does exist in the CX-90. We have driven the PHEV for a week. We've driven also both of the other turbo models, so you still have that availability as well with the 3.3-liter turbo inline 6 cylinders with the mild hybrid. So you kind of can pick all the different flavors you want still with the CX-70, just like you could with the CX-90. There's hammering it down to get on the interstate. There's your example up to 70 miles per hour. So really impressed with the power on this. We were impressed with the power on the plug-in hybrid CX-90, so this doesn't come as a surprise to me that we very much like what we see here in the CX-70. That does place it kind of in the middle in terms of horsepower versus the other two inline 6-cylinder options. The base engine option on this vehicle comes in at 280 horsepower, and then the Turbo S variants come in at 340 horsepower. So there's, quite a few different powertrains to choose from. This is kind of a good middle ground, especially if you're concerned about maximum efficiency. Speaking of, I might as well go ahead and mention the electric range that the plug-in hybrid model can go. It is rated to go 26 miles on pure electric power, so that is what you can do before you ever, tap into the gasoline engine. When it comes to the power output, it's actually almost equally split between what the electric motor is generating and what the gasoline engine is generating. So it's fairly easy for you to drive around in pure electric power, and you can actually lock the vehicle into pure electric power, or you can let it run as a hybrid, whereas you're doing something aggressive like merging onto the interstate, you'll notice that the gas engine will kick on so that you can get up to speed as quickly as possible. Another rolling start to show off that we do have an 8-speed automatic transmission on board. That even goes for this plug-in hybrid. So that's going to be across all CX-70s, and also across all CX-70s is standard all-wheel drive. So it's honestly pretty simple when it comes to transmission and drivetrains. All 8 speeds, all-wheel drive, and that does also mean that you're only going to have 2 fuel economy figures for those 3.3-liter inline 6-cylinder options, and they're both at 25 combined. Yeah. Which is interesting because obviously there's a pretty big power discrepancy between the two, but even if you get a lot more power, you still get 25 miles per gallon combined.
and 28 on the highway, which that's very impressive. Just be aware that if you choose a Turbo S, premium fuel. If you choose the standard turbo, that's going to be regular fuel, as well as this plug-in hybrid.
And I also want to point out, for those models, you do have a mild hybrid setup. That's one of the reasons why you're able to get such good fuel economy. But we're just kind of cruising down on the highway here, and I think now would be a very good time for us to discuss ride quality. Now, the CX-70 certainly has a sporty nature, which we'll talk about in just a little bit, but a lot of people are going to be doing this right here, cruising down the interstate, going 70 miles per hour, and how's the ride quality? Well, overall, we spent a couple hours with this vehicle at this point, and it seems very, very similar to the CX-90, as you might expect. That's a good thing. That means we have a pleasantly firm overall ride characteristic. You definitely are going to feel some of the bumps enter into the cabin, especially if you choose a model with the 21-inch alloy wheels. But it's not a bad thing, I don't really think. It's still very comfortable overall, and I think that allows you to have that signature Mazda sporty character that I think a lot of you guys are looking for if you buy this vehicle.
Yeah, especially with the outside design being a little bit sportier than the CX-90. I think everyone wants the driving characteristics of the 70 to match with that expectation of Mazda, and it does. Like Mason said, because it's a little bit firmer, you do have better handling when it comes to corners. Obviously, we're not cornering or anything right now, but we did take it around some corners. And body roll is pretty minimal, especially for something as big as this is. Particularly the steering is excellent, as all Mazdas really are. It definitely has like way more heft than what the usual thing in this segment has. So overall, that handling characteristic is quite nice, and I think you'll certainly like that, especially if you're cross-shopping it against more of the luxurious side of the competition versus the mainstream side of the competition.
And while not much of a corner here, about to exit, and we have some corners, and like Drew said, I think this is just really one of the nicest elements about the CX-70 is the overall driving experience. The steering is absolutely phenomenal. You know, we've come to expect that out of a Mazda product, and here with the CX-70, even despite it being a very large vehicle exterior dimensionally, it is still very pleasant to drive overall. So I really do like that about this vehicle. And now that we're in sport mode, I think that really just livens up the overall plug-in hybrid powertrain as well, to make it really seem quite quick. We're heading to be about 55 miles per hour, so I'm going to go ahead and switch it back into the sport mode, put our fan speed on 1, and we'll go ahead and get a sound level reading.
Looks like we settled in at 57.9 decibels. Now, I shouldn't have to say this, but we're not in Kentucky, as you might be able to tell. We're in the desert, and because of that, this is our unofficial sound level reading in a sense, because we will want to test it out in Kentucky on our standardized roads for best comparison purposes, but that is a pretty good sound level reading considering the texture of the road. It's also very windy out here on this flat area in the desert, so it's a good reference point basically overall.
Yeah, and if you want to check out all of our sound level readings, you can find those at carconfections.com/sound level readings. We posted all of this vehicle's competition as well as something like the CX-90. That'll provide you a very good reference point until we're able to get this car back home in Kentucky for our official sound level reading. Now guys, I think it's time for us to get into one of our signature Kentucky elements, our slam dunk and airball, our favorite and least favorite element. Drew, would you like to kick us off with the slam dunk?
Yeah, so the slam dunk today is going to be the exterior enhancements that they made versus the CX-90. I think even though there's not a ton different, obviously, those enhancements that they made to the front and the back in particular do give it a sportier look versus that model, and it really kind of just gives it a more dynamic appearance.
Yeah. On the Airball side of things, kind of going along with that, we would have wished that they did a little bit more with this CX-70. It is very, very, very similar to the CX-90 in really all aspects. That's not a bad thing. The CX-90 is a very good product, but maybe it would have given Mazda a little bit more room to be more unique in their lineup with a different exterior design, maybe some different interior finishes as well. But guys, that's going to be where we leave off on part 2 of this Mazda CX-70 review. If you enjoyed watching and are not already subscribed to the channel, we would appreciate if you hit that subscribe button down below. You're going to join in on this Car Confections family. We do a ton of automotive content I'm sure you won't want to miss out on. Also, it's a lot of fun to be a part of this family, so go ahead, do yourself a favor, hit that subscribe button down below. If you're already part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support. And once again, if you want to learn all about this vehicle, not just the driving dynamics, but also about the exterior, the interior, what features you get, all of those things, that video is already live on the channel. You can find that on part 1. So go ahead and find that video as well. We'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.